Hey guys, hey, happy Thursday once again. My name is Olivia Denton. I am the founder of the Busy Girls Brunch and Intentional Consulting, coming to you with another amazing Flourish talk. So today I'm super duper excited. I think I put up the wrong thing. Oh, I'll fix it in post. So I am super duper excited to talk to Brittany Bronson, the queen of personal branding for career excellence. She is the CEO of Rebrand Career Consulting, and I met her pretty much through Instagram. I feel like that's kind of a normal thing now. You meet people on Instagram, but I saw all the work that she was doing, helping people to really narrow down their messaging so that they can make more and do more as an entrepreneur. I love it. I love everything she's doing, and I just wanted to be, connected to her. So we've been trying to get this together, like actually meeting for about a year now, which is crazy. So I'm super duper excited to have her on and to introduce her to you guys and for her to just shed light and share her amazingness. So here she is. Hey girl, hey.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. As you mentioned, I am Brittany Bronson. I own Rebrand Career Consulting. We are a premium professional development firm specializing in closing the wage and the hiring and the graduate admission rate for Black women.
Ooh, I love that.
Thank
Graduate admission rate. I didn't even know about that part.
Yes.
Yes, I love it. Oh my goodness. So I mean, like, how did you get started? Like, what is your jam? Like, how did you start doing this?
Okay, so I actually have a pretty lengthy history in policy, so writing municipal policy. I originally started out at a commercial insurance firm as a legal analyst, and while there, they had this really great opportunity to like transfer to other departments and shadow other departments. So I went over to HR, and I just noticed that while I was managing some projects there, there were just no people who looked like me, and there was just a huge barrier when we talk about names, when we talk about coming to the interview, when we talk about just like barriers to what does it mean for a single mom to get a job, and what supports could we add in, what could we offer just as an employer, how we could be better for demographics that are not coming from a place of access. So did that work, was really loving that work, started to do a lot of pilot programming in the corporate space. So getting going to like our Black student unions at local universities and saying, hey, I have 3 internship spots, they're paid. Can I bring you over? Because I know when I was in college, a huge barrier for me being a single parent in college was that I could not afford to take an unpaid internship. So it really impacted what my resume looked like coming out of college because I could not work for free. So after doing that work for a significant amount of time, was able to go over to the City of Philadelphia's Workforce Board and just write policy, do tons of research in understanding who's getting jobs in Philadelphia, who isn't getting jobs in Philadelphia, and just beginning to like come up with some programs and partner with some awesome agencies and nonprofits to close that gap, whether that's an education gap, a literacy gap, a transportation gap, just whatever it looks like, how we can work with our public assistance programs and some of these specialty training programs to make sure that we're closing the gap. While I was doing that work, I noticed that a huge gap was resume writing, right? Like that was the biggest gap, that like we got these great programs that can teach you a trade and can teach you some awesome things. But when it really comes to the resume portion and making sure that it gets on the right people's desk and making sure that it looks a certain way, there was just a lack for that. So I could not be a technically, like, because I was running that funding stream and it was a $6 million funding stream, I could not also be a contractor through that funding stream. But I really wanted to work with some of these organizations as a resume writer. So I just stepped out on faith and went to another agency doing completely different work. So doing police oversight for the Philadelphia Police Department. And then I started to launch my own business writing resumes and then just partnered with some of those other agencies.
Awesome. That is a story.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the idea of like going into policy because I think we often kind of think about like the person to person interactions in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like business stuff, but not necessarily like the rules and regulations and the like SOPs like connected to
Yep.
everything that's actually like happening. So is that still a part of kind of what you do, or
Uh,
are you more on the training side?
So I don't do that. I mean, I'm super blessed and I'm always super thankful. I always say that like I was an entrepreneur with a 9 to 5 for over a year. So I'm super thankful to be in a space where I am able to pursue rebrand full time.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you.
I love it. I love full-time entrepreneur. You did that. Um, and I love that you like talked about, and this is something I'm really big on. I love that you talked about like having the job while building the business. I think a lot of
Absolutely.
people like have this idea that you just jump and when you have to feed people.
Right. Like we all want to eat, like me and my kids. Like I could be a struggling entrepreneur, but like I can't tell the state that about my kid. Like we're struggling entrepreneurs.
We no.
Right. Right.
Nothing like that at all. Oh my gosh. So I mean, like, how does business look right now in a COVID market, right? Because like the world has kind of shifted into a place where every industry has changed and has now had to decide, what's important and what's not important, um, including their personnel. So as you're guiding people into work and into new positions and into like branding themselves for excellence and to be seen, like what does this mean in the world as it looks right now?
Right now, it definitely means that, well, I want to start with like people are still hiring. So, like, don't be afraid or feel like people either A, aren't hiring or everyone's getting fired. Like, there are still some agencies that need work done. And more agencies are recognizing that there is a need for IT individuals in security. So, if you are in a space, I know, like, I don't know if you remember when all of this first happened, people were jumping into Zoom chats and like being super explicit. So what a lot of companies realize is like, wow, what if we had our own video platform that we could just use internally, right? So like many companies are beginning to recognize where they aren't strong technologically, and therefore they're really trying to bring that sort of talent in-house. So if you can learn something about IT or learn a web-based certification while we're home, do it. Like if you can, this is a really great opportunity. I'd also say like, remember that jobs still want work done. So like keep applying. There's also a great need for individuals who are flexible. So if you're open to, I know for me, if I'm home, I can work 11 to 7 at home a lot easier than I could work overnight physically somewhere, right? So what does that look like? That looks like a customer service opportunity. That looks like anything other than, sorry, I'm trying to think. My kid just threw something. That pretty much looks like anything other than like your standard 9 to 5 office job.
Okay, that's kind of amazing. And I mean, I think people like the security of the idea of standard, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
like you go to school for that security of what we already know that has a through line in it. But like, so no, take your time.
Yes, buddy. Yes. I'm gonna talk to him as soon as I come upstairs. Okay. I'm gonna talk to him. Okay. Sorry, we're on like fight number 1 with my twins. We're good today. We're at fight number 1 and it's 1 o'clock. So this is round 1. So we're doing good.
And that's huge. Like you're a mom and you're a busy
Yes.
mom.
Yes.
So,
like 3 is rough.
Right. Seriously. Like your perspective in this whole thing is actually extremely important. Extremely important. Like definitely from a day to day standpoint. Like how do you actually like work and how do you find positions that are your situation? Like how do you help people do that? I mean, the question kind of changed a little bit, but how do you help people kind of like find positions that are for them?
So be super honest. Like I tell my clients all the time, like be super honest. If you know that it is a shift that starts at 9 and it's a 9 to 5:30, because so many places are like cutting out the hour lunch and giving you 30 minutes now, which is like, wow. But if you know that you're a person who like that's not going to work for you, whether it's traffic, whether it's getting your child to school, whether it's just like being super honest, because there is definitely flexibility. There is definitely, Braden, please stop. Yeah. Okay. There is definitely opportunity to communicate and say like, hey, can I do 10 to 6? I like 10. I love a 10 to 6 because a 10 to 6, it's no traffic. It's less struggle. I can get my kids to school by 9 and get myself something to eat. Like, it's a completely different, and your employer will appreciate someone that can stay the extra hour to wrap up some of that stuff that couldn't get done before. I also say that like being able to network honestly is super important, right? Like your network knows that you have a child, and like your network being able to say to your network like, hey, I'm interested in an employer that can do X, Y, and Z. They know and they can help you. So always leverage your network. I know for me, I was a breastfeeding mom so my twins were young, I needed to pump. And one of the biggest things, like the pump break that they gave me, it just wasn't sufficient because I'm like, y'all know I got 2 kids, right? So I had to be super honest that like I need a longer pump break. I need more pump times. Definitely advocate for yourself. I feel like so often, especially as Black women, we won't advocate for ourselves because we be like, well, at least I got a job. And it's like we have to take away like there's thankfulness and then there's feeling like they're the prize. And so I need to just conform to whatever they say because I need them. They need you just as much as you need them. And therefore, a 10 to 6 or a flex schedule or just any other thing that you need is super important. Also, do not be afraid to get FMLA. Okay. If you've been at your job for 1 year and you have a sickly child, get FMLA. It will provide you support for whatever your child needs for 12 weeks. That's like 60 days. That's 60 days of you being able to not go to work for whatever your child's concern is or yourself. Like, take care of yourself. I am a mother with anxiety. What that looks like is like sometimes I am exhausted because I've spent 2 days anxious and worrying about something. So by day 3, I'm exhausted. I need a day to rest. And so for me, I was able to get FMLA for my anxiety.
Awesome. That's amazing. So for people who don't understand what FMLA actually is, can you please?
Absolutely. So FMLA is the Family Medical Leave Act. And what it essentially is 12 weeks of protected time off with job security. The 12 weeks may not be paid, but it's job security. What does that mean? That means that if you know that you have a child who's chronically ill, you're able to get FMLA to say, hey, my child is chronically ill. Like one of my twins has croup frequently due to just like respiratory issues at birth. Because of that, I got FMLA because croup is one of those illnesses where like my baby was fine yesterday and then like this barking cough started. Like, what? You can't go to school like this. And so it comes on so fast that I didn't have enough time to prepare my employer. But by getting FMLA, I'm able to say like, hey, the baby's sick. I have protected 1 day a week off. I don't always need 1 day a week, but I have a protected 1 day a week off.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So I mean, like that's a huge thing with advocacy, like advocating for yourself.
Absolutely.
And then there's also negotiation as well. So I mean, like, how do you teach people to kind of like move between those two things, advocacy and negotiation, for them to actually set up a work situation that is both beneficial for the employer and for themselves?
So it definitely goes both ways, right? So, like, if you can advocate for yourself, then you can negotiate a salary that fits for you. That salary may not always be money, right? So, for me, a salary negotiation isn't always giving me more money, or it wasn't always giving me more money. It was off on Fridays at 2 o'clock every Friday, or off on Fridays at 3 o'clock every Friday, right? Like whatever it looks like for you, it's all about being able to leverage what you know to be true about yourself. What I know to be true about myself is that I'm very educated, I'm hardworking, I meet project deadlines on time or before the time. I can manage budgets. I also know that my highest level of productivity is at night. So for me, a lot of my work comes home anyway, and I do it at night. Therefore, on a Friday, there's no reason for me to be at work after 2:30 or 3 o'clock. If I can leave at this time on in the summers, what's different than leaving at this time all year round?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I love it. I love it. Summer Fridays all year. That makes perfect
Right.
sense.
Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Negotiation is really big because it's not always, as I mentioned, it's not always about money. It could be more paid time off, right? So, like, if the company gives 10 holidays, but they can't meet your salary, could they give you 10 holidays and another 7 personal days? Are they able to give you maybe 3 more sick days? Like, really looking at what is it that you want, not just need, what is it that you want, so that you can go to the table and you can say, like, one, this other company offers X, right? But also, I come with a certain level of distinctness, right? So, like, what are you the subject matter expert in? What does your team rely on you for? What is something that you do that's super unique to yourself and super unique to your skill set that that company needs? I know for me, what's super unique is that I have diversity, equity, and inclusion experience before what's going on in the world right now. So
Right.
my education expands years beyond a trend or a civil movement right now.
Yeah. Before it was cool. Definitely. No, that's that's huge. That's definitely huge. I mean, like, and I think that was going to be my next question, right? Like, in terms of positioning, what are some things people should be thinking about in terms of positioning themselves um, for for their next move? Like, how do they even do that? Like, what is the philosophy on
Absolutely. So my philosophy is always network up, right? So, like, know what you want to do next, right? Even if you don't know where you want to do it, know the sort of work that you want to do. So if you know for your next role, you're interested, like for me, my next role, I want to do director of diversity work, right? What that means is I need to start connecting with some directors of diversities, some deans at some universities, because those are the sort of characters that have that sort of positioning. Once I'm connected with them, it's easier to like rub shoulders a little bit and talk a little bit more about my goals candidly,
that?
because what that does is when they're in other spaces, they're able to say, oh, you're looking for a director of diversity? I know this girl. Like, I've talked to her. She's great to work with, because let's not forget, like, you can have all the credentials in the world, but if like people don't want to work with you, you're not going to get super far. So being friendly, being personable, networking up, people knowing what it is you like and want to do is super critical for getting to your next role. I also say we are taught that, like, taking a class, we take a class for a degree, right? And like, after you get your degree, don't feel like that's it for learning. I'm always looking on like Coursera or like some sort of online something and taking just a course. Like, I don't need, when I started my business, I didn't need the whole MBA. I went for like 4 MBA courses and I was like, got it. That's it. That's all I needed. Being able to have that sort of like knowledge about yourself, that like, hey, I don't need a full degree in communications. I don't need a full communications degree, but I do want to learn to write grants because that's necessary for the next role that I want to get to. Take a grant writing course. Maybe you don't need a full mass media course, but maybe you want to get stronger in social media management because you want to strengthen your marketing offering. Feel free to take courses that are going to enhance your opportunities for when you get to your next space or when you're ready to leave.
I love it. I love that so much because then you kind of fill in the puzzle pieces, and then if there's a question of like, can you? It's just like I can. I definitely can.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love what you said about sponsorship. Like, I think that's something we don't necessarily think about. We think about mentors all the time,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like people to tell us where to go, as opposed to people who stand in the room and stand in the gap for us.
Absolutely.
Like, I think that's huge. So, I mean, like, how do you do it? I guess because it's kind of a self-explanatory thing. But like, if there were any tips you could give people on that, right? Because I think people are almost afraid to seek sponsorship in that way because it almost feels one-sided. Like, you don't know what
Yeah.
you're offering the person. Like, how would you, like, guide someone in that, or what are the tips that you would give?
Well, I also want to preface this with, like, someone could have awesome credentials, so like make sure they're a good fit for you too. Like, make sure that that's someone who you want to be name dropping your name in the room, because there are some people who, like, I don't want them to say my name in the room because of the stuff that they bring with them. But in all seriousness, like, being able to say, like, hey, I'd love to conduct an informational interview. Like when I've done it, I've said like, hi, my name is Brittany. I currently am an assistant managing director. I write policy for the Philadelphia Police Department. I'm super interested in moving towards becoming a director of diversity. I see that that's the work that you're doing. I would love to set up an informational interview at a time that works for you. And they'll send you some times. You'll pick one. It's usually on LinkedIn. You'll pick one. You'll have the call. Towards the end of the call, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'd love to talk to you again sometime. That's your offer, right? Like, and if they say something like, it was great speaking to you, I'd love to support you in this space, I'd love to support you more in your goals, that you're in, right? And so that's your opportunity to every couple of months say like, hey, just checking in, one to check on your dog, one to check on your mouse, like, I'm still, they'll say, hey, are you still blah, blah, blah? Oh, yeah, I'm still in this role. Here's my latest policy piece. Feel free to take a look. I've been spearheading blah, 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 blah. Like, these aren't people to be humble with. These are opportunities to really let people know the work that you're doing so that they can speak about you in other rooms. I definitely have gotten phone calls for roles based on just talking really heavily about myself and not being afraid to talk about myself. I always tell clients when people are like, oh, I'm humble. And I'm like, why are you humble? Like, you should not want to be humble. You shouldn't want to think less of yourself. You should be really comfortable highlighting and talking about why you're awesome. If you're awesome at your job, if you got a promotion, if you are writing well, if you're publishing policy pieces, if you got into grad school, if you're getting your doctorate, like, what is wrong with making sure that people know? Because it's so much easier to bring on someone to a team who you know than it is to go through 50, 60, 70 resumes, interview 10 or 15 people, get down to 7. Like, it's that nobody feels like that.
Yeah, seriously. That's huge. I love that. Don't be humble. I mean, so like Black women, we tend to be the most educated group of people. We have advanced degrees upon advanced degrees, but we still fall way behind in the wealth gap. Now, so like listening to what you're saying about the strategies, the advocacy, negotiating, making sure you have the right people in the room, speaking on your behalf. Like what are some things that people can take into consideration to make sure that they are getting paid appropriately for their actual skill set?
So what I always tell people to do is don't be afraid to ask, what did the person who had this position prior to me earn? Right? Like, the worst thing that they'll say is, I can't disclose that information. And you can ask for a range, right? I think we are so afraid to really talk numbers. I also think that amongst the Black community, we're told like, don't talk about your salary. Nobody should know what you make. And what that does is it creates a bunch of people who are siloed and aren't telling one another what their salary is. So nobody knows that they're being underpaid. I always say, like, share your salary. If you and your friend went to school together, like, let her know what you're making. Especially Black men, if there are any Black men, like Black men, white men, share your salary with the Black women in your network, because we will not know we're not being paid fairly if no one is telling us what they get paid. I'd also be ready to say, begin to look at like competitive companies. Like, so like if you work for AT&T and you make $12 an hour or $15 an hour, what is Sprint paying someone for your same role?
Yeah, yeah. Kiara Solomon said that's a great question. What did the person in the position before me earn? Yeah, yeah. We're definitely always taught not to ask that question, and then
Yeah.
also, like a lot of companies try to like enforce the like you can't talk about your salary thing. So I feel like which is a setup for unfairness anyway.
And it's one of those things where like you don't have to it doesn't have to be a huge, like, I want to know down to the number, right? But like being able to say like, hey, and a recruiter says like, what's your salary range? Being able to say like, well, what was the range of the person who had this position before me? That definitely flips on it onto them to both be transparent about the budget, but also be transparent about the growth opportunity. Because if they say, oh, well, when the person started, they came, they were making 50,000, and when they left, they were at 65. That lets you know that there's growth potential. That also lets you know that like this is a company who promotes people, who doesn't have a problem paying people more, who doesn't, who believes in raises. I also say, if you're feeling like you're not being paid fairly, ask. right? Like at your review, or meet with HR, or meet with your director and just say that like, hey, I've been here for 1 year. Since I've been here, I've taken the following certifications. I've completed the following trainings. Here's some of the emails that I received praising my quality work. I've gotten an extra degree. I've completed several projects. Just really having out your brag folder or having your brag sheet so that you are able to go to your supervisor and say like, hey, I've accomplished all these things. I was really hoping that we could talk about what this looks like in terms of compensation, because I would love to stay here. I love having my skill sets at this company, but the cost of living has increased, and therefore I would like to talk more about my salary.
I love that. I love that. And I love the brag sheet. I feel like it's like a media kit. It's like, you have your stuff right in front of you, so you can like send it to them like, here you go. This is what it is. So like, what should people have in their brag kit?
Definitely, anytime your supervisor themselves has said like, thanks so much, this is great work, you did an amazing job, I heard blah 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 blah, like anytime you have those, definitely save it. I know when I worked for the city of Philadelphia, I would get commendations, and commendations is where like you did something for someone and they contacted like the city office, and the city office would like say, hey, this person emailed about you. I would save all of those because it's really important. Even if we're not talking about salary, if we're talking about like a bad day, right? Like we've all had days at work where you're like, oh man, I really messed that up. Being able to look back and say like, okay, I'm not a total screw up. Like I had a bad day, but this is not me forever. And this isn't the quality of work I always produce. Maybe I just was tired, or maybe I just didn't like come all the way through here, but like I'm still good, I'm still great. Having your brag sheet, maybe a coworker says something really nice. I'd also say, while we're on brag sheets, if you have a friend, go recommend your friend on LinkedIn. I am like a huge proponent of making sure that like the Black women in your life are celebrated. And LinkedIn is a really great space to go on her page and write a recommendation, whether she has awesome writing skills. I'm not talking about just an endorsement. I'm talking about taking some time and typing out, I worked with Brittany on X project. While we worked together, she was really great at explaining complex ideas. I was able to walk away feeling like I had a greater understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion after partnering with her. Like really going in depth for what that Black woman's skill set is, because the reality is that like Black women's reputation gets to a room before we do. And so if we aren't covering one another with a LinkedIn review that someone could quickly look out online to make sure that that reputation gets in the door first, then we might be doing each other a disservice. So I love writing my girlfriend's LinkedIn reviews.
I love it. I love it so much. I see someone actually like try to tag their daughters in the comments, and I love that as well. So I mean, like, so for the young women who are like college and grad school age, who are kind of coming into the job market now, like how would you recommend they even think about it?
So definitely think of it as a marathon. Is it like marathon, not race? Did I say that right? Definitely don't think of it as like, you do not have to earn six figures when you come out of school, right? Like I know on Instagram, everybody's on vacation, everybody's popping, like everybody got a Louis Vuitton bag, but like you do not have to come out of undergrad earning $105,000. Like you could make your little $40,000 and be fine, right? Like really begin to understand what's your living cost. And as long as your living costs are, paid for, and you can maybe do a trip once a year, maybe do, I live in Philadelphia. We could drive to Rehoboth Beach. We could drive to Jersey, right? Like be realistic and like understanding that you don't have to have it all today or right now. Understand that like you can always get better. So the skills that you need at work the skills that you need for career growth are going to come from your first job, right? Like if you can go into your job and recognize whether they might not be paying you six figures. Some people, we got some engineers, we got some folks, they going to come out, they might make six figures. But if you're coming out of undergrad and you're not making six figures, do that job well, because they may promote you, because you may go to another job, work your way up. I did not see six figures until I was 29. I graduated college. I graduated late. That's another thing. You might not graduate in 4 years. It's okay, because I graduated and it took me 6 years to graduate undergrad. And then by the time I got out, the people who graduated in 4 years, I was starting law school with them. So they spent 2 years doing God knows what, because because they still were just getting into the thick of graduate school and law school the year I came out. So it does not, it is truly a marathon, not a race.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. And you have to run your own, like, and take your time with
And
it.
walk
Like,
if you need to, right? Like if they're running and you're like, I don't want to run, right? Like I'm gonna just walk my race because I'm gonna get there either way, right? Like money's not gonna go anywhere. Miami's not gonna go anywhere. Like there is so much opportunity. Just enjoy where you are. Those broke trips, the broke trips that I experienced, like growing up or like in undergrad, make me appreciate the super nice trips. But like I should have been having broke trips at 20. Like, what is life without sharing a hotel room with 4 other girls?
yes, it's fun. It's character building.
It's character built. Now I know I've done that. And I know, girls, we go on girls trips and we need our own room. And I'm gonna see y'all at breakfast, right?
Because I earned it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it so much. Oh my gosh. Yes, okay. Like literally just keep saying it. So about you, right? So we're in this new COVID world. How have you kind of been maneuvering for yourself and taking care of yourself and your business? And what are some things you're like doing?
Okay, so for me, we're in Philadelphia, so we're in like the yellow stage. What are you guys in?
I have no clue. We don't go outside anymore. That's all I know.
Okay,
We're in
right.
Texas.
So all right. Okay. So we're pretty much there. So my husband is immunocompromised. So we actually pulled our children out of school before like the schools officially closed. We like had to submit a letter that's saying like, hey, this is happening. I'm not sure what you guys are going to do, but we're going to switch to homeschooling. And then the schools closed about like maybe a week or two after that. So it has definitely been for me learning to homeschool because that was not my ministry prior. So I've been on Pinterest, on Amazon, just like ordering educational posters, potty trained one of my twins. The other one is still a work in progress, but really just like also taking advantage of the fact that like it took me a while to realize it, but like social distancing doesn't mean I have to stay in my house forever. I can go work outside, like on my porch, like it doesn't mean like, close the doors forever. We also did a staycation. We just got a hotel room, and for the kids, it was a different scenery. It was something new to go to. Being open to that. It's definitely different. Self-care looks different for me. It looks like recognizing that just because I'm home 24/7, I don't have to be on my computer 24/7.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely a big one. And yeah, actually having boundaries. I think we've had to explore boundaries like itself a whole lot
Yeah.
more because there's no one really telling you like what to do for real, for real. And it's funny because like, as you go through life, of course you're in school and there's the boundaries of the bells, and then you're in college or not in college, and you still have to like figure your life a little bit differently. But now it's like we're home, so it's like the boundaries are just like they're a little bit more blurred,
Yeah.
but it's important.
Especially for my clients, and I'm even telling like my clients who still like work a 9 to 5, I completely like it's harder for them to have boundaries because like their work laptop is right there, right? Like the emails are coming. It's like, oh, let me just get up and answer this, right? Because you're like, I'm gonna see it in the morning anyway. I might as well get to it while I'm up. And it's like, yeah, but yeah, you need to physically like close the laptop, put it in a bag and zip it up and put it under the desk. Because if you do not, like you I know you're salaried, but like that's a lot of hours. I have clients who are now working like 10-hour days, 12-hour days because they're like, oh well, if I do this now, I can sleep in tomorrow.
Right, right. And then it never happens because
Right,
there's always
because
another issue.
exactly.
It's crazy. It's crazy. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. So so there's that. So another thing that I think is really great that you said was you kind of made the decision to take your kids out like before before there was any public order or anything.
Yeah.
You recognize, that's that would be affected by the world at large. So like it's another form of advocacy and just like
Yeah.
making sure that you're good, and I love that.
Yeah, and that was super hard. And I say, like, honestly, being a Black mother is hard. Like, my son does have ADHD. He is a high performing, completely fine, straight A student, but he's is a boy and he plays a lot, but he's also Black. And so I really had to get super comfortable with what it looked like to advocate for my son. And it was hard, and it's super hard because it's like, wow, am I that mom? And it's like, yes, like I am becoming that mom, because as embarrassing as I thought, I remember seeing other kids' parents come to the school, and I would be like, oh wow, yikes. But I had to realize that, like, sometimes you do have to leave your job and show up at the school and tell teachers, like, don't call me again. Like, when he's here, like, do I call you when it's 8 and he's at full at home? Like, am I calling you to say he doesn't want to take a shower? Like, he's 8, like he's going to, and so, like, just like going through all the motions of learning, also like learning education law. I had to learn, like, what does advocacy look like, and like equipping and arming myself with like the education piece of it. So case in point, a big thing is Philadelphia does not have any K-2 suspensions, and then really understanding like what a suspension is defined as. A suspension is defined as any removal from school, right? And so calling me and saying, hey, I know it's 11 o'clock in the morning, but can you pick him up because he's not having a great day? You're not marking it as a suspension, but by definition, that's what it is. And so, like, really beginning to say, like, no, because at 11 a.m. I'm at work, and at 3 o'clock I'll see you, and like, it's not he's just getting on your nerves. And let's be real that, like, there's also like Princeton data. Like I said, like, I'm super into data, but there's Princeton data that really follows eye tracking software, and found that any teacher, white and Black teachers alike, their eyes just naturally go to Black children, Black males, more often. And what that means is that they're seeing more bad behavior or more inappropriate behavior, because they're looking at them more, not because other children aren't doing it, but because there is a predisposed bias to Black male children.
Yeah, that's real. My son also has ADHD, and just the amount of time you have to intentionally put into partnering with the school for their education, like, it's incredible. And like, yeah, like, looking at other kids and other students when you're a kid, like, you just see like this parent always showing up. And you yourself, like, you're fine, like, you're not struggling in class when you were a kid. So even like having to like retrain your mindset to say, like, okay, my child is predisposed to these behaviors, and these resources in order to be like, that's huge.
It's super big. And then just also recognizing, right? Like, for me, I didn't really understand learning accommodations the way I should have, right? So, like, I had about a month learning what is a learning accommodation, because I think, and I don't know if this is culturally, but like, learning accommodation, we always think of like those children who need more academic support because there's a learning barrier, versus my son is considered gifted, which is also a learning accommodation. It's either the IQ is here, where it should be, the IQ is a little below, or the IQ is above, but they're all learning accommodations. And so once we were able to recognize that my son was a gifted student, what that meant was when he finishes his work and he becomes a distraction, that's because his brain is literally still moving. Like, biologically, he just still has so much action in his brain that there has to be something put in place. And because he's at a school, they have to accommodate that. And so working with, like, okay, when he finishes his work, he gets to do a lap around the school, or he does a walk, or he gets to stand up and get the jitters out, just whatever those things are, advocating for them. But that really took the school calling me so many times and me saying, like, you cannot. I had, like I said, I had bad anxiety already. I would be at work just like humiliated, feeling super overwhelmed, feeling really stressed, worrying about, was he in trouble, worrying about what was going to happen when I get home. Like, it just wore me out to the place where, like, part of my self-care was beginning to advocate for him, and like really putting tons of onus on the school. Like, honestly, as a parent, my responsibility is to get him there clean, get him there on time.
Yeah.
That's it, honestly. Like, and help him with his homework or whatever. But like while he's there is not just academic teaching that has to happen. There's also social cognitive responsibility that his teachers have also.
Yeah, it's definitely it's collaborative between home and the school. So like
Yeah.
even if you're doing everything at home and you send them to school, and that was a huge thing for us. Like sending him to school was already always like I did a lot of the work. I remember I sent him a busy box because after he was done his work, he was like all over the place talking to other students, just bouncing off the walls. And it's just like he's fine. He just needs something to take his attention and make sure
Yeah.
that he's doing something. So like kind of going back into the career realm, like what does that look like in terms of advocating for yourself in an office setting, right? Because like if you are in an office or if you need some accommodations, like how do you even like say like, hey, you know what, I have ADHD, I'm dyslexic or dyscalculia, I don't know how to say that. Like, how do you get those same accommodations as an adult?
Okay, so two things here. I first want to start with like I at some point had to be honest with my job about my son's differences because I had to say like there is nothing, sure, he does not have something where it's like a physical hindrance or a physical disability, but he does have emotional differences that require me to be really active as a parent at his school. And yeah, I leave it there. And like, they understand what that means when I say like, hey, I need to go to John's school. Yes, buddy. Okay. I need to go to John's school for a little bit, or, I'm going to take the rest of the day off because John had an incident in school. Like being honest that like I'm a parent first and my son already has, first I'm a parent and my son already has these other things. And so I'm going to need some time sometimes, but also for myself, I had to have a conversation surrounding just my working style, right? Like for me, I don't work well in the office. I'm distracted. I'm going to talk. I'm going to get up. I'm going to be in people's business. I'm going to go get water. It's just a lot, especially as so many spaces are shifting towards, even for their leadership, there are not offices, it's communal space. And for me, that's a lot of stimulation. Like it's a party out there for me. And for someone like myself, it just does not work well. And so I have to be honest that like, I need to work from home some days. Like if I'm super, super swamped, I might need to go home and I might need to do my reading and my writing at home.
Awesome. So, I don't see any questions in the comments. Guys, if you have any questions, like feel free to drop them. Have time, I'll see. She can bring them. But for now, Brittany, you're so amazing. I appreciate all the work you do and all the insight you bring, and like how it's so deeply rooted in your own experiences and in the things you want to see in this world, right? Do the business you want to see in the world. And like you're definitely doing that. And I've always kind of like loved watching you put like events, programs and things together. Like because I'm just like, oh yeah, doing things that are helping. So know that I'm cheering you on the other side of Instagram.
Thank you. And that's what championship looks like. And so like I want to like that's exactly what championship looks like, right? Is that like I had to step out there and say like I do this great work and I do this awesome stuff so that like there's sometimes people will say like, oh, such and such recommended you. Now this person has never been a client. This person is an entrepreneur. Like they don't even have a 9-to-5 themselves, but they still recommend me to other people because I'm not shy about saying that like I'm a bomb resume writer. Like I'm gonna get you some coins. It's nothing wrong with saying it. If you're not saying it, who would know?
Right. Exactly. I love it so much. You have to sell yourself before anybody else can sell you. Like, so, my darling, my friend, my new actual.
We're here, right?
It happened finally. Thank you so much for being here. Like any final words of wisdom for the
Today is Black Women's Equal Pay Day, so definitely. Okay, I will help you in 1 second. So definitely make sure that you are taking advantage of all of those resources that we talked about to make sure that you're being paid fairly. I also have a yes. I also have a post on your Tango called 3 ways to make sure that you're included. And it's really talking about making sure that you're paying Black women fairly in your place of business. I also say if you're ever interested in any resumes, twins, please. Resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn, admission statements, please feel free to check out www.rebrandcc.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
All right, girl. I'm gonna let you go be a mom.
Right, because this bumper car is here in my office. Like, I don't even know. Like, it's just like, thank you so
Wherever you
much.
are, they belong.
Right.
You're so
See
beautiful,
you.
lady. See ya. Whew. All right, so that was all the information. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed our time with Brittany Bronson. Like she said, she is www.rebrandcc.com if you want to get your whole entrepreneurial life together. She is the person. So please feel free to reach out to her. Once again, thank you so much for being here for Flourish Talks. If you're catching the replay, thank you so much for being here and being in the Busy Girls Brunch group. I super duper appreciate you. We got some awesome things coming in the future, from a course to some fun freebies that will be popping up for all of you amazing people. But again, I just wanted to thank you for everything you are and everything you're doing both here and for everybody around you. Okay, love you very much. I will see you in the group and next week.